That was Cloud Rat with Corset. Now joining us from the band, playing guitar in it, Mr. Rorik Brooks. How you doing, my friend? Welcome to the show. Thank you for spending your time with us today.
Pretty good. Thanks for having me. You got me all big on the screen here. You look
Yeah,
crazy.
you get to be all big on the screen.
No!
Everybody gets to see us every week. They only get to see you once a week, so
Yeah.
you got to be the big fish in this pond.
Well, I used to do a live stream actually. Last year I did it for a while and got used to it, but now I'm back to my hermit ways. So I don't know.
I understand those, but the quality, the video quality looks good. Your hair looks lush. Like your face is ready for it. Like you're bred for the big time, my friend.
Oh, okay.
So let's talk a little bit about Threshold coming out in a little while. We got a couple of weeks before the album drops, and I know that y'all, just like just about everybody else, had some challenges with this record, I'm sure. What do you think that in recording this album and in writing this album was the biggest challenge that you yourself or your band faced, and how did you overcome it?
Well, probably like most people in the last couple of years, it was a lot of it was done in isolation. So uh, that was, I think it presented some interesting things, rather not just challenges, but we were able to sit on a little longer though, and kind of take time with feedback. And by the time we actually recorded it, I feel like this one actually maybe felt a little bit, I don't want to say easier, but a little more confident actually.
Mm.
Even though we hadn't hardly, I mean, we didn't get together at all. It was all remote writing and basically until we got in the studio. So, but I think all that kind of turned into its own. I mean, you kind of hear bubbling anxiety throughout it, so worked out, I guess.
Yeah, although I will say bubbling anxiety definitely isn't anything new to y'all and your sense of music or anything like that, right? I mean, just that furious, frenetic, chaotic pace that you've had even going back to, your debut EPs and debut album. Do you think that was dialed up a little bit? I mean, I don't know. I know that y'all live pretty far apart from each other just on a good day, but did this change the way that y'all wrote music as well, since you weren't able to get in and practice beforehand?
Yeah, it was definitely like usually we get together, bounce ideas off each other, and then I'll go back and kind of put together a demo, just using drum software and stuff, just to have like something that sounds a little complete that we can then pick apart before we go to the studio. But this time, since it by its nature was so isolated, a lot of it would like I'd get an idea and then run with it and then finally send a more complete version to them, and by the time it came back, it would be basically done by the time we got together. So yeah, it was a little different.
I got you. Cori, please jump in here.
Oh no, that was actually like the perfect segue into my question, because you mentioned going into the studio, but for this one, you actually recorded it yourself, am I right?
Yes, that's
And
right.
like, talk a bit about that experience. I'd love to hear, because I feel like this album has a lot of detail going on to it. Was recording it yourself, did that allow you to create that detail and that depth? And what was the experience like overall?
Yeah, I mean, again, it just goes back to having more time with it. Although we did end up running into a hard deadline because we had this tour that was supposed to be happening in a couple weeks. So we had to have the record out by February in order to have vinyl in by, October. So, but to go back to your question, yeah, I think having it be at our studio where we're not, maybe it's just a money thing, but not on the clock. And I just, sitting away, whiling away. And every take we would do, we'd be like, okay, is this our best? Whereas sometimes in the studio, you end up bulldozing over parts that maybe you would have fixed if you had the time or felt, confident with it. So, yeah. And then the mixing aspect, I mean, I did a lot of learning on the fly, but having the time to be able to pay attention to each part, made it easier for in the long. I shouldn't say easier because it actually was a fuckload of work, but yeah.
Relatively easier, I guess you should say, right?
Yeah, I mean, I tried not to, I think as it's probably common knowledge, you can fall into never getting something done when you have all the time to work on it. But I really attempted to stay away from that and just like on one hand, I had time, I was working on it, but on the other, I knew, or I was trying to be like, this is good, get it out of the way, we'll go to the next part, So it worked out.
Yeah, for sure. And do you feel like having your hands that deep into the project makes this album more personal or have like a deeper connection to you since you did have your hands in more this time around?
Probably. We've been fortunate though. All of our studio sessions have been with friends, like at the helm. So it's always been, fairly personal. Like the last, we did our last few records at Lake Bottom in Toledo, and JC is a total wizard and a sweet person. So, they all felt, from the heart there too. So probably not that much different. Other than I definitely know these songs better because I heard them, probably way more than I would have otherwise.
Excellent. And John, you looking like you got the question face on.
No, this one is actually just my face. I do have another question coming up, but no follow-ups or anything like that.
Sorry if I'm giving bad answers to
no,
not
at all.
The prompts.
John and I try very hard not to steal each other's questions, but it happens all the time. So there's always these awkward pauses of like, did I just steal what he was going to say? But I will go ahead and pass it back to John now.
Or there's a whole lot of, I don't want to like interrupt or anything like that because I hate interrupting. I hate being interrupted, and I do it over Zoom all the time.
But walk all over me. I'm about it.
Fuck yeah. I was going to ask, you mentioned a couple of minutes ago about how you all were feeling very confident in this release due to either like having the time, a lot of different reasons over there. I know when you all released your last album, Pollinator, there was a sister companion EP that came out with it that was, completely different style sound. It was still Cloud Rat, and there was a lot of different elements that you all have showed in bits and pieces here in your music throughout your career. But really diving into this other side of this band. Do you think that may have had something to do with how y'all were feeling about your band and your sound and your creative output?
Yeah, you mean at the time that we did that record?
Correct.
Yeah, I think, well, as you said, there have been hints of it throughout the years, and we did this big batch of splits the year before, a couple years before. It was like 3 different split LPs and 2 split 7-inches. And each one of those we kept peppering with kind of weirder and different things, but mixed in with our usual grindy stuff. And then I think maybe Yatsik from Artifact is possibly the culprit for the more like the full shift into the more electronic stuff. Because when we signed for that record, they'd asked for just like a, bonus material and possible bonus material to go with the record. And we just kind of were like, fuck it, let's do something totally off the wall. And that's what we came up with. And that was on a serious time crunch too. So I'm actually amazed that people liked it and that it turned out as well as it did. And then I can go back and listen to it and be happy with it. But yeah, I think it's always been there, and now we're wrestling with it because, we did this record and we kind of thought about doing something similar, but thought maybe we just do back to our roots again with this and then not try to force it, because we definitely have a bunch of ideas for all kinds of weird stuff, but maybe we just wanted this record to just stand on its own as it is and then come back later with some other, forays into the strange.
I love it, and I know that there are going to be a lot of people that do. So that being said, so you're saying that there's a more, just Cloud Rat identity with Threshold, but is there anything on there that you like, any surprises you're excited for people to hear, or anything that people might be like, oh, whoa, I can't believe that they're doing something like that?
Yeah, I think every song feels pretty unique on this one, even though they're all, for the most part, pretty blistering. But there's one
That's an
track.
understatement. I'm sorry, but it is.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool. Now there's a well, one song has my oldest child on the viola, the last track on the record, and
Fuck yeah.
That's awesome.
I'm really, really happy with how that one turned out, and I think it's a pretty. I'm excited for people to hear it. But there's another song that a lot of these were kind of weird. Like some of them were riffs that I had pulled from like 15 years ago that I had just sitting around. And one of them was this song that I had written a long time ago that I was trying to copy Earth, basically copy Earth. You know, the bees made honey in the lion skull, I think. So but I was trying to do that. I had like a piano and this riff that repeated forever. And funny enough, it's very fucking hard to sound like Earth and be good. So anyway, I took that riff and turned it into a grindcore song. But maybe if you're listening to the record, you'll be able to hear it because it stops right in the middle of the song, and then there's this little kind of weird picking part. I guess that happens a couple times in the record, so who am I kidding?
Yeah, well, I was going to say too, the single Kaleidoscope, I feel like kind of bridges that what we were just talking about, right? Where it has that kind of like, proggy type of intro to it, and then it goes kind of a few different places before getting right back into the frenetic pace of it. So I think I hear what you're saying on that, as far as just trying to put all those other things, and maybe some of those other things bleed over. But yeah, I mean, Cori is right. It's all blistering is an understatement over there.
Yeah. I don't know, let's see. I just saw Alice in Chains a couple days ago, and I realized while watching them, just while I was pretty hammered singing along the whole time, but
as who wouldn't be?
Yeah. Oh, they're so good. I don't want to say surprised, but damn, it was real good. But I definitely reflected for a second, because I've certainly pulled a lot from grunge and stuff, and you hear it like even in Kaleidoscope. I think there's that sort of groovy riff in the first part of the song that probably liberally borrows from that. Yeah, I don't know.
Cori, please.
Oh, awesome. Sweet. I'm not interrupting anybody. I wanted to just touch a little bit on the lyrical themes of the album, because, in going through it, there's a lot of, paranoia, isolation, all of that, which really ties into the past couple of years. But one other thing was the drowning aspect in the lyrics that is kind of, and as somebody with, I hope I'm saying this right, thalassophobia, which is the like intense fear of the ocean, that stood out to me. So what is like the impetus of all of the water and the drowning that it's kind of ties throughout the whole album?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could speak deeper on this, but unfortunately Madison was stuck at work, so she couldn't be here today. But from what she described to me, basically this album is a concept record. And even though, I like the lyrical themes you mentioned, I certainly were affected by, or in part by what was going on in the world and pandemic and stuff. Everything is, right? Nothing's in a vacuum, but it's a concept record about a person having a mental breakdown. And I would hazard to guess that the drowning themes, because she mentioned that explicitly to me, even like water and drowning and stuff, I would imagine that would come from the feeling of being, crushed and totally like in the midst of chaos, that drowning, I guess, works as a pretty good metaphor for a feeling that one could feel like without a way out, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, there was really no way out but through when it comes to the past couple of years.
Yeah. And we're trying to be pretty hesitant about, chalking everything up to the pandemic. Like, I want this record to be what it is, without, I don't want to like in like 5 years come back and be like, oh, it was all about the pandemic, because it seems, it won't age well. But also, I don't think it is either. I think it's
no. There's so much more upheaval beyond the pandemic over the past couple of years that
absolutely
it wasn't just the pandemic. It was everything. Everybody was pissed at everything and everyone all around them. And this is like a great soundtrack for that feeling. If I'm being honest, it's like the visceral emotion of the past couple of years. It's channeled very well throughout this whole album.
Thanks.
John, follow up. Next question.
No, I was gonna switch gears just a little bit if that's cool, Cori.
You do you.
Yeah, last question for me, Rorik. I just wanted to know about your time over at Roadburn earlier this year and how that was for y'all. And I believe you guys got to play some shows around Europe after that as well. Like, what was that like actually getting back out to play some live shows?
Yeah, Roadburn is probably my favorite festival that I've been to, at least, heavy music. It's such an interesting curation and really cool vibe. And I met Cori, actually.
Yes, that is where we met.
Yeah, we had the impromptu
meeting.
Meeting, yeah. But no, I really enjoyed it, and I will say, so we did for the first time in front of a larger audience, we did the "Do Not Let Me Off the Cliff" stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And that was interesting. It was, especially, we did it first too. So we had only played 4 shows since the pandemic started. So that was, a couple of years in, and that was very challenging, I will say. But we got through it, and then I felt really good about our heavy set. So, and then of course, we did that thing with Thou and a bunch of other friends. Like, that was very fun and emotional to get back with everybody and feel that way. And the shows with Leech Feast all around Europe were excellent. They are a killer band. Highly recommend Leech Feast to everybody. And then, we did the US too. A couple weeks after Europe, we did MDF and a bunch of other shows around that, which was intense. That was a really intense trip. I'm sure maybe some people watching, who were either at MDF or heard about some of the shit going on. It was a pretty, the festival was great, but, there was just some really harsh stuff going on. And I feel like it sort of colored the rest of the tour with this interesting, I don't want to say negative, because we had a lot of good times and good shows, but there was like some somber element going on.
A heaviness to it that wasn't related to the music.
Yeah, and I think maybe that was happening in Europe too, and that could just be just the feeling of being anxious and getting back out there, and traveling in general is a little bit different, a little more stressful now. And all that being said, though, it was really great to be back out, and I don't know, maybe y'all saw, but we're unfortunately not doing our tour next month, but that's a whole other, it feels weird to be canceling something after 2020 everything was canceled too. So, but totally unrelated reasoning, has nothing to do with 2020 stuff. So
yeah, I was when I saw that, I was like scribbling out the questions I was going to ask you about how excited y'all were and everything like that, because I think it just, and I was talking about this with someone too, is it feels like we're through the pandemic in a lot of ways, but they're also reminders every once in a while that there's still things that all of us are living with that have just become either commonplace, whether it's the uncertainty or anything like that. So I don't know, just some really harsh reminders sometimes of this world that we live in. Not that we need it anymore, everybody.
No, and we're still going. We got some shows next month, November, and there'll be more. And I'm excited about it. And I will say, real quick, anybody watching, that Hyde is still doing a good portion of that tour in Europe, so you should go see them because they are really excellent. So you know.
Don't get rid of your tickets, everybody. If the shows are still going on, go out, go see some shows, support some artists.
Yep.
For sure.
Cori, do you want to take us home?
All right. My final question. You ready for the final question, John? All right. And so, Rorik, for you, this is probably the most important question you will ever be asked in any interview ever. This is an intense one. Are you ready? What is your favorite dinosaur?
Oh, that is an important one.
It is, right? It is a defining question, because this tells people who you really are.
Yeah, I guess young me probably would have said Stegosaurus, but then I played Primal Rage back in the day.
Holy
Anybody play
shit,
that game?
Oh my
And
god.
the people were all worshiping the god of hate, Sauron, which he's just a cool T-Rex. So I guess probably damn it.
Just
Maybe I should just stick with the Stegosaurus, okay?
Let's go with let's create. So they create dinosaurs in Jurassic Park all the time. These weird hybrids. Let's do like a Stegorex. It's a T-Rex with the spiny thingies down the back. He's got the horns on his tails, but then he's got the little tiny arms.
Oh,
so
this
a
is
Stegosaurus
Godzilla,
T-Rex mix. And let's make it an omnivore.
Yeah, I love it.
This is just Godzilla, right? There you go. Cori, you made Godzilla. I love it.
I made Godzilla. Yes,
Let's
there we
get
go.
it before anybody else gets on that IP. Everybody will be rich.
Well, Godzilla doesn't have the horns on his tail.
But he's got the spikes that go all the way down the
He
spine.
does have the spikes, but he doesn't have the horns on his tail, and he breathes fire. This dinosaur does not.
You're okay. Gotcha.
And Primal Fear, they breathe fire though, Cori. So,
shit.
Primal Fear.
Okay,
Primal
basically,
Rage.
okay, your dinosaur is Godzilla. We just got to go with Godzilla at this point.
Perfect. Rorik, thank you so much for spending time out of your day to chat with us and everything like that. Congrats on the new album. You can bet that we're going to be spinning it when it comes out. And of course, we'll be playing more songs from it throughout the year, my friend.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. You can just close out of the browser whenever you're ready. Everybody, that was Rorik Brooks
No!
from Cloud
Yeah,
Rap.
and it was good to see you
For the
again.
rest of the stream then. So we'll make room. We can do it.
All right. Hey, you guys have a good one, right?
You do the
Yeah.
same, my friend.
It was
Take
great to
easy.
see you again.
You too. Bye.